Welcome to the Special Education Inner Circle podcast. I'm your host, Katherine Witcher. If you sit at an IEP table, you belong here. For over 25 years, I've been helping parents, teachers, admins, and therapists build IEPs that work in the real world, and I can't wait to help you. Let's dive in. It's time to start thinking about therapy differently for both home and school. Let's talk about it today. Let's talk about 5 considerations when you're deciding what kind of therapy should be happening at home and school. Because here's the thing, I've been doing this for a long time, and I can tell you that the process of deciding what therapy a child is going to be getting at school really has not changed much in decades. We really have done the same thing where we go through our IEP meeting, we get to the end, and we say, okay, how many minutes of speech or how many minutes of occupational therapy? How many minutes of physical therapy? And so we have goals, and then we have some minutes, and it's just kind of left there. We're not talking in depth about what is that therapy going to look like. And therapies are just as important, right, as our academics. So we spend a lot of time talking about academics and curriculum and supports in that area, but we're not giving the same amount of attention to therapies within our school setting and collaborating them with home. Therapies is one of the best things where we can say, okay, if this is what's happening at school and when we're in our therapy sessions, this is how we can replicate that at home and we can see more progress. So here's the thing. I've got 5 considerations for you when it comes to thinking about therapy, both at school and at home. So I'm doing research all the time. I'm looking for the best of the best resources and programs, and that includes in the area of therapy. This has just been something that's been on my heart as I've been working with master IEP coaches and hearing about the struggles of their clients in the school system and how they're helping solve those struggles. And they need resources and they need options of what can they bring to the table at the next IEP meeting as possible suggestions. So it's important. Our consideration number 1 when we're talking about therapy and what are we going to do is to just acknowledge that there's no one right way to make progress. So we've been doing things the same a lot, or we've been doing kind of an eclectic approach when it comes to therapy at school and sometimes at home too. And in looking at what could we be doing that will kind of shake things up, and it might be different than anything that you've ever seen before. That's what I thought when I came across Mendability. So Mendability is a sensory enrichment therapy. I'm going to make sure that you have the links and all the things to go look at Mendability and see if this might be something that you're going to bring to your IEP table. But when I look at what are some different ways that we could possibly see progress in a variety of different students who have a variety of different needs, what might be a good resource, Mendability came up in my search, and I've actually spoken with them, and I was like, yes, this meets the criteria, the things that I was looking for us to just really look at therapy as an equal part of the education, not just something that's on the side, not just something that is extra, but it becomes truly integrated into a child's day. So there's never one way to make progress, right? Because when we go to do things different, you might get some of those looks of like, that's not how we do things here, or we've never seen that before. And that's okay, because you're going to do things differently. Now, the next thing, this is consideration number 2. You have to remember that what has worked before may not work now. So if you're like, well, I don't know if I need to do something different. We just need to keep on doing more of what we are doing. We need more. We're not seeing progress, so we need more. But what if you need something different? What if you need something that is a completely different approach? I am going to encourage you to not just look at random things that are out there on the internet and the Facebook groups and all the places, and make sure that as you're doing your own research, that you are making recommendations or having conversations on programs that are also research-based. They have data to show that their approach works. Again, Mendability has all of this information and data and case studies, and I can see it has worked in schools. I can see that it works at home. I can see with actual numbers that this is something that is credible and it can be a key resource for IEP teams to consider. So I want to see, not just does this look cool and fancy, does it have all the buzzwords of everything that's happening in the world right now? We've got a lot of kind of fancy words that are floating around in our therapy world, and we need to make sure that although something might sound right, we need to make sure that there's information, there's data, there's proof that what is being said is working. So that's something I'm going to encourage you. If sensory enrichment therapy, if you're like, what? Like, that sounds interesting. My child or my students, they struggle with overwhelm. We have standard things like sensory breaks or sensory diet put into, my student or my child's school day. Maybe sensory enrichment therapy is something to consider. Again, I want you to go to Mendability and go check out not just how awesome their service is, but look at the research, the data, the numbers, the proof, and make sure that you feel solid when you're making recommendations of why and how this could help. But I also want you to take into consideration, this is number 3. Number 3 is false deadlines equal false failure, meaning that a lot of times when we're trying something new, especially in the world of therapies, and therapies are typically getting switched up because something's not working, a child's in crisis, we're in a bit of a panic, everybody's in overwhelm, not just the student, all the adults are in overwhelm too. And then we say, okay, we're going to try this for 30 days and we're going to see how this works. Yikes, that's a lot of pressure. So that's like a false random deadline. Like, here's a false deadline and then it doesn't work and we're like, failure. No, that is false failure then too. So you need to, if you're looking at a program and you're looking at the research should tell you how long realistically this might take to see results that you're looking for. So I went looking for that when I was, impressed with Mendability and the things that they were doing. And I went and I looked in their their research, and I looked into their FAQs, and I'm like, 6 months. Okay, 6 months. So this way, if I'm bringing this to the IEP table, or if I'm making a recommendation of this to master IEP coaches, and I'm saying, you know what, this might be a great resource for some of your students that are struggling, but don't expect results for 6 months. Like, we can't do a 30-day trial of this and expect it to work. That's not how this works. We have information that says we need to have a longer trial period. In our school system, we tend to have like 30 days, 60 days. Sometimes we get to 90 days, but very rarely are we trying something for a full 6 months, taking in all the information. We have the supports, we have the research base, whether it's curriculum for academics or if it's a therapy program. We don't have the patience a lot of times to wait 6 months, but we need to. We create these false deadlines that then leads to false failure. It's not failure. We just didn't work on it long enough. We didn't give it a chance to work. So that was our third consideration. Here's the fourth one. What's your desired end result? Meaning that a lot of times we just say a child needs more OT or we need more speech. But we're not talking about the desired end result of what are we looking for with this therapy. Because what everybody wants out of a therapy is going to be different. Every child needs something different out of speech therapy. They need something different out of their occupational therapy. They need something different, right? So what is your desired outcome? A lot of times we're looking at goals. We're like, we need to get from this milestone to this milestone. Did we get there? And we forget to look at the bigger picture of like, what are we really going for in this big picture as a desired end result? So for example, how does this sound? That Mendability is looking for results such as a family being comfortable, confident, and happy. And children that they would not feel as much overwhelm in the kind of like sensory chaotic environments, and they sleep better and they feel calmer. I can tell you that there are parents right now, right? Parents, if you're listening to this, because we got parents and teachers listening to this together, but parents are like, yes, yes, please. Yes, please. Could my child please sleep better? could could my child feel calmer so then I could feel calmer? Could we function as a family? And that's really serious here. Could we function as a family unit? And a lot of times when we're dealing with this overwhelm and our systems are all dysregulated, it's not just the child, right? This is causing dysregulation for the entire family. So when we look at an IEP and we look at, the purpose of an IEP being to prepare a child for further education, employment, and independent living, family's in there. Family's going to be the one that's helping them be independent. Family is the one that's going to be the rock, the solid, the foundation. So we need to make sure that we are taking into consideration the family when we're designing plans that work both in school and at home, because it truly is changing the quality of life for an entire family. So if the desired end result includes things like family being calmer, functioning as a unit, everybody getting their sleep, it's not just about a child going to school and learning how to pay attention and sit at a desk. It's not. We need to look at this in a bigger picture. So I want you to consider, as you're sitting at the IEP table and you're making recommendations of, 30 minutes of speech therapy, it's like, truly, what is the desired end result? Or we're saying, 30 minutes of OT. What's the desired end result that we're going to achieve with 30 minutes of OT? And do we have a program to get there? A program is really important. And again, we talk a lot of times about programs when we talk about curriculum, but we don't talk a lot of times about programs when it comes to therapies. And it's time for us to level up the conversation when it comes to therapies at the IEP table. We need to start talking about, like, what is this going to look like? And are we going to get to the big picture, not just the next milestone, but the big picture? And then this leads to the fifth consideration. We need therapies to be flexible and collaborative, meaning we have to be able to customize this for the child and for the family and for the classroom and for peers and for siblings, right? It has to be flexible and it has to be collaborative. It needs to be designed to work with the whole child. And so the child can then be who they're supposed to be. Therapies are not made to fix a child. Therapy should be supporting a child to be who they are and to be comfortable in their own skin, right? It should be that they're comfortable so they can really exhibit their knowledge. They can build those relationships. They can access their school at the full capacity. They can participate with their family at the whole level. So therapy is not about let's fix something. It's no, let's support the child and help them get to be who they are. That's a core piece that I'm looking for when I'm looking at what does this program do? I want to make sure that it's supporting a child in who they are and helping them grow into who they are. So again, as I was doing all of this, I came across Mendability. I've spoken with them. I can see the information that they have and how it could absolutely be working. And it is working in schools. There are schools that are using Mendability. There are homes, of course, that are using Mendability. I want to encourage you to go look at Mendability as a place if your child has had just sensory overwhelm, if you see sensory breaks or sensory diet inside of the IEP, that would be a great starting point for you. Now, if that's not you and you're like, nope, that's not, like, where else can I start? Just start searching and take into consideration these 5 key areas. There's no one right way, which means that you're going to have to step out of your comfort zone and look at some things that maybe you haven't looked at before. Go ahead and just settle into what worked before may not work now, which means that more of what you're doing right now is not necessarily better. Remember that you cannot put false deadlines saying, okay, we're going to try this for 30 days. Like just randomly picking 30 days, not good. Got to have a reason for that. Let's make sure that we're working on the big picture of reaching the big end desired result of what we need, not just hitting the next milestone. And let's make sure that whatever recommendations we're making, that there's some flexibility and some collaboration to really customize the program to meet the child where they're at. If this was helpful for you today, could you please leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, or like, comment, and share every time that you send this information out? It helps more parents and teachers find resources that they need to level up their leadership at the IEP table. I'll see you guys next time. Wait, one quick thing before you go. If you enjoyed this episode of the Special Education Inner Circle podcast, could you please leave a review, share it with a friend, or maybe even take a screenshot and tag me on Instagram? Every time you leave a review or share, it helps more parents and teachers find resources they need to help them at their IEP table.